On late model KTM EXC bikes, the front sprocket is held on with a bolt and washer, as you can see here. This video is to show how to change the sprocket. When you order a new front sprocket, make sure you get the correct type for your bike. The one shown here is the one for my 2017 250 EXC. When replacing the front sprocket, I recommend using a new bolt to minimize the chance of breakage. Also, if you buy this kit, it comes with a new washer as well, which is handy. If you have a new bike and have never removed the front sprocket before, you'll find this bolt extremely difficult to remove because it's held in with red Loctite. What you can do is apply some heat to the bolt carefully, and that'll soften up the red Loctite and the bolt will come out a lot easier. One danger of doing that though is the countershaft has a seal, and if you heat it up too much it'll damage the seal and then you get oil leaking out. So what I prefer to do is not use heat and use a long breaker bar, and while applying the rear brake try and loosen the bolt. Some people have reported that they've snapped bolts off by doing that, so you need to be careful. If you can't loosen it easily, I would recommend applying some heat, but you'll have to see how that goes. When I first got my bike, it came fitted standard with a 14-tooth sprocket, and I changed it over to this 13. So I've already had this bolt out once, and when I refitted it, I used Loctite 243, which is blue Loctite, medium strength. So I don't have to worry about that. I definitely won't need any heat. There's two methods you can use to remove the bolt. One is apply the rear brake and use a breaker bar and a 17mm socket and undo it. It's a regular thread, it's not reverse thread. But the method I actually prefer is using an air impact, so I'm going to show how to do that. The air impact I have is an Aircat 1150, and I've got a 17mm socket. When you take it off, just have the chain on it. It doesn't need to be in gear. You don't need to apply the rear brake because it spins so fast. Once you've removed the chain, you can pull the sprocket off easily. Here you can see the old sprocket and the new sprocket. The old sprocket, you can see the teeth are getting worn and a little bit hooked, so it's a good time to change it. Before I put the new sprocket on, I like to check there's no oil leaks around the countershaft seal, and I also like to clean off the countershaft splines, make sure there's no grit on there. And that looks good. And I like to lubricate the countershaft splines with some Moly 60 paste. This one's made by Honda, but you can probably find others. So I apply the Moly 60 all around. The grease minimizes wear between the countershaft and the front sprocket, so it's a really good idea to apply this. And I've applied a small amount of Moly 60 on the sprocket itself as well on the inside, and then I can just install it and then wipe off any excess grease. Once you've put the chain back on, you're ready to install the washer and bolt. Here you can see I've got a new countershaft bolt and washer. You can see it already has red Loctite applied to it, and I don't really like red Loctite in this application, so I'm going to brush it off. So before I install the new bolt and washer, I like to clean out the old Loctite. So I use a tap, so this is an M10 tap, and just run it in. And then it's a good idea to blow out any debris. Then I like to do a test fit of the bolt and washer and make sure it fits in correctly. you should be able to hand tighten it, which I can, and it's holding the washer. So I know that when I tighten it, it's going to torque correctly. Before I had one instance where I didn't clean out the Loctite and used a torque wrench to torque it. It torqued, and then I found the washer was loose. So I think it's very important to clean out any old Loctite. Now I'm ready to install the new bolt, and I'm going to apply some Loctite 243, which is a medium strength Loctite. And don't forget the washer. And one tip is to, when you're installing the bolt, make sure the washer is in the middle, otherwise it won't seat correctly. Okay, and that's ready for torquing now. So the countershaft sprocket bolt needs to be torqued to 60 Newton meters. You need to hold the sprocket in place while you're tightening it. The method I use, which I think is the safest method, is to have a helper press down on the rear brake, which holds the rear wheel in place, stops the chain moving, which stops the sprocket moving. There are other things you could do, but I think that's the safest way. And then just torque it to 60 Newton meters. You press harder. Press harder. Okay, it's torqued now. As you can see, it's quite difficult, so it's much easier to have someone else helping you. As you can see, it's quite difficult to hold the wheel in place with the brake pedal, so it'd be really difficult to do it on your own. If you've got a helper, it's much easier.